In this part of the AutoCAD software tutorial, we want to talk about the cutting tools. Of course, in the 2D section of AutoCAD, there are commands like trim and break. Let's continue watching the rest of the tutorial together. In the previous part, we learned a very important command. Among them, the lengthen command was one and offset was another command. If I explain this trim command to you in this lesson and you learn it well, with just this one command, you can easily complete and draw a map. So let's see what its tips are. Imagine, for example, that you have a series of lines here in front of you. Like this, let me just draw a few lines for you to see. Now we have two commands. One is the trim command and the other is the break command. Let's first see how the trim command works. What the trim command does is that it cuts relative to one or two objects. What does that mean? It means you want to delete this part or this line relative to this line. In other words, let me do it quickly once. Look. In other words, you want to say, for example, remove this part, or you want to do it relative to the circle. You want this part of the line to be removed, so I do it again. I do it again on this and it gets erased, right? So how am I doing this? The shortcut for the trim command is TR. I press TR for this. As soon as you enter the command, it asks you what you want to delete. Click on it. So all you have to do is click on any object you want and you can easily delete it. Fortunately, in the new version, even if just a tiny bit of a line is outside, it will delete that too. Whereas in the older version, it wasn't like this. In versions above 2023, a new feature has been added. So you can easily press TR, hit enter and click on any object you want. You can delete that object relative to one or two other objects. What does relative to one or two objects mean? For example, look at this little line here. It intersects with this line from one side and with another line from the other side. When you use this circle and click here, it deletes the part between these two. It's the same for the other lines as well. You can easily delete them. But the next command we want to learn is break. The break command deletes based on the points you specify. For example, let's say I want to delete from the middle of this line up to here, for instance. So I don't want it to delete this section based on these two lines or based on this line. Do I want to delete this part? Should I tell it from where to where? This is where we use the break command. So I type BR and as you can see below, it asks you to select. I select and after I select, now here it's enough to tell it where I want to define the first point. I click on first point and say, let this point in the middle of the line be the first cut point. Now where do I want the second point to be? For example, I want the second point to be here. I click this point here. So between these 2 points that I defined for the cut, it deleted the section in between for me. Now, with this command, can I actually split the line into 2 pieces? I don't want any part of it to be deleted. For example, I just want this line to be split exactly in the middle. Well, that's possible too. All you need to do is after you hit enter for BR and click on your line, here, enter first point again and double click on a point. For example, I double clicked on this point. Now, if you pay attention, I can click on this and completely separate and isolate it. Well, this is another tip about the break command, but at the end of this video and as a continuation of teaching these two commands, there are a few more things. There are also a few more tips that are very practical, and I want to share them with you so that we can fully cover this command together. Suppose you enter the trim command, this time with TR enter instead of saying delete this, because if I do it now, it will be deleted as we already know. Instead of deleting it, you want to tell it, no, continue, meaning step on the gas and go forward. So how can I do this? It's enough to just hold down the shift key, keep your finger on shift, and now click on this. Simply line. It continues. We call this command extend, which is actually a separate command. But you no longer need to enter the extend command. As long as you're in trim and your finger is on shift, it will continue. But the next point I want to mention in Revit is about the break command. Let's say you don't want to just randomly say delete from here to here. You want to specify an amount. For example, you want to tell it from this line. Keep the first and last segments and delete the middle part. To do this, naturally, you enter the break command. BR enter. Okay, you select this. enter the first point. Now this time you stand at the start of the line, move and specify the amount. For example, 300. See, it's separated 300 from this end. Now again, I stop at the end of the line here, move again, and this time I enter it again. 300, this one is also 300. So what happened was, because I stood at the start and end of the line and moved, it separated 300 units for me. Basically, it put a point here, another point here, and deleted the middle part. If you didn't understand how I got this 300 unit gap, you definitely need to watch the videos related to OS 9 and watch the Polar videos as well. Actually, there are some videos available. I've put them in a playlist. It's called Point Finding. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the bell button so that as soon as a new tutorial is published, you get access to it. All right, let's move on to the next city.